Okay, so here we have a variation on the college tuition program. Now things are going to heat up a little bit. We're going to have even more complex decision making using a nested if technique. Nested meaning an if inside of an if. In this program, we're only going to go 2 levels deep, but in the next program, we'll go probably 3 or more levels deep. So here, looking at the business rules, these were the same business rules as before for the graduate, undergraduate, and so on, but those were for the in-state students. So let's say this is a state university. In-state residents pay those original values that we talked about previously. Out-of-state students pay more, okay? So out-of-state undergrad tuition, for example, is $375, almost twice as much per credit hour as in-state residents. And so the prices go up for the other categories as well. So we have a couple of decisions to make. First of all, what kind of student are we dealing with, residential-wise, in-state or out-of-state? And then within those 2 categories, are we dealing with undergraduate, graduate, or doctoral candidates? So I've modified my my variables just a little bit. These were the original values for the in-state students. I just changed the names to in-state just to differentiate between in-state and out-of-state students. I've added a second set of constants here to represent the tuition values for the out-of-state students. Okay, so now we've got 6 constants total representing the different prices of tuition for the different types of students, given their residential status and also the type of student they are. Okay, and then I did add one more here, another character to represent the residential status. I've initialized that with a null escape sequence. And so looking at the code, first we're, of course, getting the student type. That hasn't changed. Graduate, undergraduate, and so on. All right. One thing I did add to this program, talked about the user entering U, G, or D, for example. What if they have their caps lock key on? I want to make sure my input is consistent. When I have my if-else statement, I want to test for the small lowercase u, lowercase g, and so on. So one thing you can do, if you don't want to use the logical OR that we talked about in the previous version of this program, you can use the toLower function. Okay, and what that'll do, this is a function that'll just take a character and squash it down to lowercase. So if the user does have a capital U or a capital G in the student type variable, then we'll just convert that to lowercase and then overwrite what was in that student type variable. So this will ensure that your input is lowercase. There's also a toUpper function if you want to go the other way and test for a capital, but here we're using toLower. Okay, and then I'm going to ask the student or the user for the residential status. Little I for in-state, O for out-of-state. And again, I'm using toLower to convert that input to lowercase. If it already is lowercase, there's no harm done. But if it's uppercase, then I benefit from converting that to lowercase. Then when I go into my if statement, I only have to test for lowercase and not have to cover all corners and test for uppercase as well. Okay, and then the credit hours. All right, so now getting into the nested ifs. This isn't as simple as just a straight if, else, if, else, if, else, if, okay? First, I have the outer if. I'm testing the residential status. If this is an in-state student, okay, they're going to have their own set of tuition rules. And this is basically the same if statement as before for the most part. If it's an undergraduate student, notice a double equal sign, don't forget about that, then the tuition bill is calculated with the in-state undergrad. The graduate is in-state graduate, and so on, okay? And so this is like the outer if for the residential status, okay? So this is like the end of the res status if clause, we'll say. You have to, the trick in nested structures is never losing sight of those curly braces. That's going to be something that you have to focus on. So let me even zoom out a little bit so we can better see the structure. So this is the outer. That's for the residential, or in-state rather, okay? Those are the student types, and they get their own set of tuition numbers. Okay, now the else clause for the residential status, or the else if I should say, this is for the out of state. Okay, this chunk here is for the out of state. And then the nested if inside, 2 levels deep. So here's your out of state tuition numbers. Okay, and I just did a copy and a paste, and I changed it up a little bit. The trick, again, is getting the curly braces straight. After that, it's a lot of just like copy, paste, edit type of stuff. But it's just getting that basic structure down. That's very, very important. And then I did put an else clause in the outer if, so in case they do enter an invalid residential type, they'll get that message. So that's it. And then we're home free. We just display the tuition, the payment amount, and that's that. So there's your first nested if.